Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach.
And I'm Mac.
And today we're talking about the 10 new to us games we played at Austicon. And actually, in total, we played 14 games here, 4 of which we had owned and previously played. So, 10 brand new ones to us are the ones we'll be talking about. Some other ones we played were Stamp Swap, Sushi Roll, Reavers of Midgard, the card game, and Anno 1800. So those are the other 4 that we played. And I think I know I really like all 4 of those ones. So,
yeah.
I think there's one in there you might not like as much.
Oh, yep.
Maybe you do. Maybe you're fine on it.
No.
But yeah, so you can go check out our video if you want to learn a little bit more about Austicon. We put out a video earlier this week. You can go check that out if you want to learn about that at all, if that's one you want to go to. But otherwise, we will just kind of go in the order we played these ones in. And these actually were all play-to-win games.
Yeah.
Which was
hit the play-to-wins real hard.
We hit them real hard because, we've only been to now 4 conventions, and this is the first one that's had a play-to-win section. So we went hard at it because, mostly because they seemed like interesting games, at least to me. Yeah. You can disagree when we go through them if you're like, I was really not looking forward to this one. You just let me know, because I feel like I got a good amount of choosing which ones we were playing.
Expectations on anything. I don't know what anything is, so.
But yeah, and spoiler for these first 2, we actually won the first 2 that we played, and we started with Nunatak, Temple of Ice, which is a game where you are kind of drafting these cards with different symbols on them, and then placing kind of these little
ice cubes.
I was gonna say cubes. It's kind of a cube. It's supposed to be ice cube, and you'll place them in a spot depending on matching the symbol of the card that you just drafted, and then usually those different symbols allowed you to score points in a certain way at the end of the game. So you're gaining them that way, or that was one of your big point getters, I think, in the whole game. And then you were trying to kind of complete squares of 2x2s, and then also complete lines or just rows, I guess.
Yeah.
Not really rows and columns.
Right.
Is the main thing you were trying to do in the game. And actually enjoyed it. I thought it might just be a little gimmicky, because whenever you got a game where it's kind of you're building something up and it's kind of got a 3D presence, sometimes that's more like, they might not really had a full game there, and they just added that element to make it appealing, give it some table presence. And I'll say I gave this one first impression of like a 7 rating, I think. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit, and I'm really happy that we won that one, because I think it was a pretty quick game, and it was fun where there is a little bit of maybe... I don't know if you call it take that, but you're like, trying to sneak into, be sneaky is maybe more of what you're trying to do there, and take spots from your opponent and stuff. And sometimes the cards that flip over just are unlucky, I think is going to be the case in this game, where your opponent might be able to kind of get some big moves in because of it, but I thought it was pretty good.
Might not always serve you. Yeah, I agree. I would probably give it a 6. That does have a little bit of a control element to it, I think. Where I think, like you want to have kind of like a group of them, and somebody could, snipe your card. We did play it at 2-player, which has a 3rd-player bot. So at like 4-player or 3-player...
It's not really a bot. It's a 3rd player, and you kind of go back and forth picking for that.
Yeah, sure. So it has that, and so I don't know at 3 or 4-player what that would look like, because we basically used the bot to kind of block each other as we could. So it was kind of like having an additional sort of thing to do. And if it's just, placing your cubes in the temple based on the cards that are out there, you're right. Some of it could be good. Some of it might be tough. All in all, I really liked the set collection and all of the pieces and kind of way it worked. So I think just because it is a little bit like, where's he going to go? Where do I need to go? That kind of vibe, the little bit of abstractness. I'd have to be in the mood to play it.
Okay, that's fair. And she looked out because she is using the Board Game Geek rating or scale and their terminology on what they say. So she might seem a little bit more harsh. And I'm trying to get there a little bit more because I've given a lot of games 7s, and I think I have to be like, which ones do I really personally want to play? Like, usually when I've given things 7s, it's because I'm like, I could see, I could keep playing this. It likely wouldn't necessarily always be one I would pick, but I wouldn't call it a bad game kind of thing.
No, and I wouldn't say 6 is bad either. I think 6 through 10 are good.
It.
But when you think about it, if you put them into the BGA, you're going to have to use their... I mean, you don't have to use their ranking. Yeah, sorry, BGG. When you put it in BGA, you have to give it a number, and I just as well use the number that corresponds.
That is fair. That's a good way to do it.
Side rant. All right, next game.
Next game, Roll Camera. And this one was one that, I don't know, I thought something about it looked fun. I enjoy movies, and it just kind of I figured from the looks of the box and the fact that it opens like that, I'm like, okay, this is not going to be my typical Euro strategy game.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like super thinking and stuff. It's probably just going to be more of hopefully a fun time, and it looks like it won some awards for like thematic stuff and stuff, so I'm like, hopefully that's a good sign. And yeah, I could maybe feel it a little bit. I don't know. It wasn't as fun as I was hoping. It wasn't doing as much of like the kind of crazy movie creation that I kind of in my head like envisioned, like, was hoping for. It's more of actually like being on the set and managing the pieces, and then you kind of just get a card that represents like a happy scene or a sad scene or something, so it's not really like I don't know. It didn't feel as much like making a movie, even though I guess it makes sense. Like, that is the stuff, it does do the stuff you would be doing if you were making the movie. It just, when you think about it, I don't know, it just seems like more of a Hollywood thing, like bombastic and stuff, even though that's really not what's probably going on behind the scenes.
Well, it's co-op too, so you're kind of working together on each individual's turn to kind of make this work. And we did play on, I think, the easy mode, and we were kind of getting real close by, so maybe in the harder mode would make it a little bit more interesting.
That's true.
Or awful, I don't know.
Yeah, I gave this one a 6. It wasn't my favorite. I don't think I would have gone out of my way to buy this one after the fact. I don't know if there's... Let me know in the comments below if you know of any games that kind of give you that movie creator vibe, because I would like to know of some really good ones. This one it's fine. It's I think it's a little closer to maybe some Family Weight style. And then the decisions just didn't seem as satisfying. Yeah. I think that was part of it. There was nothing about it that really was, that was a really satisfying thing.
Yeah. I agree. I would give it a 5. Take it or leave it. I'm not big on co-op anyway.
Right.
It was cute. I like the artwork. It's kind of, I think you're right, medium family weight game styled. That might be, kind of fun to do with the kids or something. But I don't know. For us in our gaming style, it just didn't hit for me.
Yeah. And then the third one we played was also feeling thematic. We keep with the themes, and that was A Pirate's Life, or Plunder, A Pirate's Life, but the theme was being a pirate, or it seemed like it.
Yeah.
And this one, I think what drew me to it was the back of the box had these components of these pirate ships that looked really cool, had sails in them, cannons, and it just... From the look of it, I'm like, okay, don't get too excited, Zach, because this looks like it could be like one of those like heavy war games where it's like really complex things and stuff. And I'm like, I'm guessing that's what it is. So I looked it up on Board Game Geek, and I think the weight was like 2 something or whatever. So I'm like, okay, that makes me feel a lot better, because I think if it was a heavy war game, it would be a lot higher than a 2. So I was like, well, that's good, because I like that theme, and if it's that kind of approachable, I feel like it's maybe bringing that theme to life, because to me, I'd want it to kind of maybe a little lighter and has the potential to be a little more fun and crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, this one was pretty light. You're just pretty much gaining these resource cards to continue building up your ships, possibly adding mass to them and cannons, and then you're trying to go out and control different islands and get to 10 points.
Plunder points.
Get a bunch of plunder points, and just get to 10 points first. So it's kind of a Catan-style race where you're trying to get to 10 points. So overall, I liked what it offered, but it got a little repetitive. I think with what you were kind of doing, and then there was definitely some luck based when you would go on to like the X's. Sometimes it could be treasure. It could be really good. It could be
not
bad. And it's like, I get it. That's part of, I think, what makes it fun, and that would happen. So I mean, it makes sense, but it felt like it got to a point too where, because you're going to try to get just 10 points, you kind of just turtled once you had control of a few islands, and then just were trying to get points via the other way. So unless we misread the rules, and you can't like do that, I feel like every kind of end game is going to play out that way. So I gave it a 6.5. Still play it, but probably wouldn't go and get a copy myself. But the production was really solid.
I would agree.
Had its moments.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd give it a 6.5 as well. I feel like it is pretty thematic. It's got some really great pieces, and that's so fun to kind of sail around it. But I think there are just some elements to the game that, kind of drag on, or maybe could play better in certain ways or whatnot. So all in all, a good game. I think I just have to be in the mood to sit down, because I think we were at it for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours. And it being kind of simple, it was kind of, But still a good game. We had fun with it.
Yeah, I would agree. Or maybe if it had just a little bit more dice rolling, because you kind of get to the point where you don't really want to, because then you're kind of risking it for yourself, which is fun. But the building things back up is very expensive.
Yes.
So you don't really want to take too many unnecessary risks.
Very much so.
But then the fourth new one we played, which was one, I guess this was not a play to win, but our family brought this one with, and that is Love Letter, which is a game neither of us had ever played before. I'd heard of it and knew it was kind of a card game where there's kind of a little bit of a deduction piece to it, where you are, what makes me think of Coup or something, where you get a character card, and some of them allow you to do certain things, and what you're trying to do is survive pretty much the whole game, and then by the end have the highest level character left over. And I thought it was pretty fun. I gave this one a 7.25. It was pretty quick. You can I like that the rounds aren't too long, but you could get kind of sniped right off the bat and just sit out a whole round. I don't always love that in games, but I feel like this one, the rounds were kind of short enough that it didn't really matter. And fun things could still be going on that you can pay attention to and kind of laugh at when something, someone takes someone out and stuff. I think that can be still a fun moment. So it provides you with something that's still going on, and it's not like you're sitting there out for a 30-minute game or something. Because then that would kill it for me, but
I agree. I'd probably give it 7.5 for all the same reasons. It's kind of just a nice little filler game, but interestingly enough, it kind of can go on if somebody isn't winning those 4 tokens or whatever it is.
That's true.
So that could take a while in a 4-player game to finally get someone to 4, but it wasn't overly long, and like you said, I think I had interest every time we played a new round or started a new round, trying to kind of figure out how to win, and it's just pretty simple, but also at the same time like challenging to sort out who's who and what's where and how can I survive longer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that's a classic one, because I don't remember how many years, if it's 20 years that it has to be in the Dice Tower Hall of Fame, but I think Love Letter was just added to it. I think it was 20 years. Might be 10 years. I don't remember. Idea it was that old. 10 or 20 years. I could be wrong. I do not remember off the top of my head. But I do know that it was recently added there, and I can definitely see why it was. I think it makes sense. Then we played Stamp Swap, which we'd already played before. And then we played Wondrous Creatures, which was probably the one I was most excited for because it was kind of kind of the only one on the shelf that was more of a Euro-style game, more of a strategy game.
A little bit heavier.
A little bit heavier than the rest of them. So that was probably the one I was most excited to play. And so, yeah, we got it to the table, and I would say this one was my favorite game that we played there. I really enjoyed what was going on. I liked the worker placement, which reminded me a little bit of Whistle Mountain, where you trigger things around. With that one, it's like you got balloons and blimps, and you trigger the things around it. And this one was kind of similar, where you'd place these, I don't remember the term for it, but creatures, but I think crew, into kind of these 2 hexes, and then kind of trigger all of them around that, and potentially be able to trigger some other things around it as well. If you had nets, you get some eggs that you're collecting. I just like that as a mechanic. I don't know of it in many other games. If you know what I'm talking about and you've seen it in other ones, let me know, because I'd love to know where you're triggering kind of an area of things, because that just feels really fun to me, very satisfying. And then otherwise you're kind of just building up your tableau of these cards that can give you ongoing benefits, end game rewards, kind of immediate benefits. And I thought they're all really fun. Thought the production was pretty solid. And actually, I think there is a upgrade pack and stuff that makes like the eggs wooden and stuff, and some of the other things. So I could see that being even better. But I thought this was already a pretty solid production just from kind of that base retail version. So.
Yeah, I probably would give it a 7. You're right, it was more Euro gaming than anything else that we did there. I really did like the kind of...
Magnetic Rider.
Yeah, that was fun. But then also, I think the way the cards worked with the game, how they were a habitat or a resource, and that kind of played into, like, different
kind of
end goal
different
scores. Yep, and then
like
also, like... you need to pay this to be able to play it, and so it was nice to kind of manage your hand and really have like a goal that you can work to, which obviously those are kind of interchangeable on games because they have a variety of options for that. I did get to a point where I felt like it was just like place the person, cards, instead of like place cards, so it was a little bit of just like spamming to get what you could out of resources. But I don't know if it's just because we were all we're on the same trajectory, but I feel like it's supposed to be that like people take off at a different time that people are playing, so it should kind of flow, and it did a little bit, I think. But I know there was times when like I wanted to play something and I like couldn't get near where I wanted to be, too. So then there's not like a great way to get it otherwise. So you're kind of, they have some cards that mitigate that a little bit, but, I don't know if it would be enough if you were really, really out of luck. But all in all, I think, like I said, a 7, so still a great game, and one I wouldn't hate playing more.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess what did you think of the trophies and awards? I feel like we ended up kind of all going for them. I don't think anyone went for fish.
No.
Like, until towards the end of the game.
Yeah.
And I think depending on what people are going for, that can get very difficult. You start going for the same one as someone else or whatever, and then they claim the biggest award. I like that there's at least 3, so it's like if you were going for that, you should hopefully still be able to get kind of that second one, but it does kind of suck if, like in our case, someone claims it like the turn before, and it costs you a handful of points.
A handful. Twice. It cost me a handful twice.
And who still won?
Okay.
Exactly.
But that's only because I managed to get the big point ones real quick.
You did, and you stole those from me. Then our 7th game we played was Globetrotting, which this one was one that I had some interest in when I saw it, because it just looked... It was another one that looked kind of gimmicky, but it looked like it could be fun. But then I think I watched some reviews on it, and the finickiness of things, I think, turned some people off. So I was like, it's a pretty pricey. I think it's still a pretty pricey game, and I was like, I probably not worth taking that risk, especially if I think some of their globes were like, because you got to put them together and take them apart every game, which is kind of a pain. And I think some people are having trouble possibly breaking them and stuff. So I was like, it's probably not worth the effort. But I think either me or Carson, I think I was one of the top 2 that ended up liking this, even though it was a very simple game.
Yeah.
It was very simple because you're just taking, so you've got your globe, and it's pretty much a flip and right game where you've got these locations on the globe, and you're taking a kind of a spring vacation and a summer vacation or trips, and then fall trips, and you just kind of line it up on this globe and make a straight line from each, the destination you were at last, and then deciding which season you're taking it in, and drawing the line to that new location. I found that somewhat sad. It worked for me. I don't know why. It is a big gimmick. I gave this one a 7. I actually liked this one quite a bit. I don't know what it was about it, even though I was the one that messed it up and took way more trips in summer than I was supposed to. And by way more, I mean one more. Right. And then that kind of messes up the whole thing. So I think I ended up getting last, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, that was a good one. I probably would give that one a 6. It was simple, but it was good. Little gimmicky, like you said. You're really just drawing lines and trying to maximize your objective cards,
it's pretty simple.
Your score cards, and then trying not to spend the most on your flights throughout the different seasons and stuff that you're planning these trips in. So, all in all, I thought, kind of a fun, easy game to kind of approach and play. And we like travel in general, so then I was kind of looking at it like, oh, we haven't been there, maybe we should look at going there.
I was looking at it and I'm like, that's a board game name, that's a board game name. I guess we got to get all these board games.
Oh boy.
But yeah, actually Zach and Carson won that one. That was in the play to win, and they actually won back-to-back games we played as well, because they also won 4 humors, which was the next game we played. And that one was one I was mostly interested in because I liked the artwork. It's kind of some strange artwork, and sometimes I feel like I wouldn't like a weird style like that, but there's something about it that I liked. I liked the artwork to that one, and it was from Adam's Apple Games, who made Planet Unknown, which is one of my favorite games of all time. So I'm like, I don't know that I've heard that much about this one. So I didn't actually, to be 100% honest, I thought this was when I had heard of it and stuff a little bit, I thought this was a card game. I did not realize what kind of game this even was, but then when I saw the box, I was like, well, that can't be a card game then. Why would it have that big of a box that's overstuffed, overflowing, open? So that made me a little more interested in playing it, and then it ends up being a game where you've got this pool,
the big drawing game,
this pool of different
potions
that you can kind of put out on these different, sheet things that scenes, and there's 4 different types you can put on there, kind of yellow, red, black, white. Sure, they all stand for something. I don't remember what they were. You probably remember.
Yeah.
But like, if there's only one of a yellow, at the end of, once 2 scenes are filled up, you kind of reveal these different discs because you place them face down. So it's going around the table. Everyone's placing one at a time until 2 scenes are completely filled up. And then you reveal them. If there's only 1 yellow there, the yellow wins. If there's 2 yellows or more, everyone or all the yellow is not the victory condition then, and then it goes to reds, and if there's 2 reds, or 2 or more reds, then all of those would win. But if there's only 1 or less, or 0, then red does not win. That condition does not win, and then it goes to black, and then it goes to white. So I found that just really fun, because you're kind of playing the game. I feel like the first half of it, we weren't really saying what we were putting down, but that's part of the game too. You can tell people, oh yeah, I put a... because each of those spots has 2 different colors it could be, and you can say, yeah, I put a yellow down there. And then they're thinking, was it really a yellow, or was it a red, or what was it exactly? I thought it was pretty fun. I gave that one a 7.25. The one thing that it holds it back for me is I loved what the game was doing, but the scoring stuff just felt weird to me. I don't know. That part did not feel as satisfying or fun, and it's just kind of a race to complete 4 objectives to win. And it works. It's not that it doesn't work, but it just... wasn't as fun to me as that first initial part of kind of trying to be sneaky winning those. Like, that part was the fun part to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if either of those parts are that fun to you. But I gave it 7.25.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I probably would give it a 4 on the BGG scale. I mean, it wasn't terrible. I don't know that maybe on further gameplay it would improve for me. But I think just kind of, it's a little bit chaotic because you only get 4 of your potions and then you have to decide what to do with those 4, and then you draw a new one, you know, so you're kind of dependent on what you have a little bit, what comes out of your bag, and then as you claim scenes, you lose some of those potions, so then it's kind of like, well, how many do I actually have in my bag, because I don't remember what I've actually lost. You can probably check. But I think, yeah, it was just hard because you couldn't always control where you were going to go or how you were going to get there, and so it was hard to plan for some of those objectives. They probably did a decent job of trying to spread them out, so some of it was dependent, some of it wasn't. But then we also had that thing on the other boards on the other side of the main game board where you would get rewards and stuff, or maybe you were fighting over them again to go in a different location. So it just felt a little bit disjointed, I think, for me, like how to like actually get there and stuff. And that like bluffing piece is never my favorite element in a game usually. So all in all, I think it was fine. Maybe on more games it would improve. It's super quirky. I think you're right. The production of it is super fun. Totally just kind of random and wild artwork, and I think it's supposed to be set like in the medieval period. You know, when they're doing scenes and stuff like Shakespearean days type thing. So I think that part's kind of like fun. They've got fun names for everything and whatever, great production on it. Just gameplay was a little bit of a struggle for me.
Not your cup of tea.
A little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, that's fair. It is going to be, I think that's one that will be divisive. But then my number 9 definitely won't be divisive, especially if you're looking for a Halloween or October fall-y kind of game that you want to play. It was Don't Go In There, and I believe this one was actually published by the same people that made Globetrotting and Fromage. I think they're all the same. I think it's R2I, I believe. And yeah, this one was a pretty simple game where the box turns into a dice tower. Which is another gimmick that I think they're kind of known for their gimmicky stuff. And yeah, this one you are kind of going into 3 different areas of a house, kind of scary areas, and gaining to gain some of these cards that'll have curses on them. And by the end of the game, you want the fewest amount of curses. And there's kind of 4 different steps you can step onto, or kind of the deeper you go into a room, the more scary it is, the more ghosts that can end up getting to you. And the further you're back, the less ghosts that will get to you. But then turn order for picking these cards with the curses on them, the further you're into the room, the quicker you get to pick cards. And then once those 4 steps have 3 different people's or 3 workers on them, then you will look at the tops of these cards, which will have either 1 or 2 dice on them, and then roll the total of all those dice into the dice tower. And for all the ghost symbols, you'll take 1 ghost, or the further back you are, you have 1 flash. The first step, you'll get all those ghosts that you rolled. The second one, you'll be -1, then -2, then -3. And then whoever has the most ghosts at the end of the game gets 1 curse for every 2 ghosts that they have. So it's really not something you want to do. That ended up being me in our game, having too many ghosts. Too risky, I guess. Playing too risky, fast and loose with my ghosts.
They didn't quite matter because you didn't even end up with the most curses at the end.
Yeah, I got kind of lucky. And this one, I gave it a 7. This one I feel like is a lot of fun, and it would be one that I think I actually would take out for Halloween and play. Like, there's sometimes where it's kind of like, I don't know that I'm really that excited to play it. I get that, it's got that theme that makes sense to play it now, but I would want to be taking this one out, I think, because it's just got those fun elements of, having those dice that you're rolling, kind of, seeing how risky you want to be with that. And then just the way the cards work, too. Like, some of them, like, once you get it, 3 of these, you get rid of all of them, or you get rid of another set of all the same type, or all these special abilities of ways to kind of get rid of those cards
Mm-hmm.
so you don't take any of the curses on them. I found that really actually pretty enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree. I would give it a 7 for all of the same reasons that you had said. I think that it would be really fun to see how, because we only played with a certain amount of cards, there are different,
There's different types.
Card decks or whatever that
Kinda like
kind of combine
Ethnos.
together. Exactly. So I feel like it would be fun to kind of try and, sort them up and, figure out what works for each of them, because I can definitely see, on future plays, how you would kind of know where to kind of go, or how to best manipulate some of your hand, because really at the end it's really just a challenge against how many cards can I get rid of. You have to take cards, but how many and how can I get rid of them, which I think is a really cool element to that game. And doesn't I feel like it doesn't hurt that it's gimmicky. They got these cool glow in the dark dice and got cool little meeples, so I think they did a lot of great things to really sell the theme and just kind of the fun of it. So
I agree. I think that one might be one of them that I'd be most I'd buy Wondrous Creatures, but I think that would be one that I'd be most likely to buy after the fact, even though
I was bummed we didn't win it.
Yeah, I was actually hoping to win that one, but yeah. Then we played Sushi Roll, which is one that we own and have played before. And then we played Kinfire Delve. And this was one that actually had two kind of different versions. They're both Kinfire Delve, but they're kind of different names. I think there's three different ones that there are, but they had two of them there. And it's a cooperative game where you are you have this unique deck of cards that does, certain things depending on which character you are. And we actually turned it into a 4-player game. I think we played it right. But the rules for the 4-player, it said if you have 2, you can play 4 players. But then the actual rules on the 4-player were non-existent pretty much. So I think we did it right. It felt like we played it right. Because I think it would just be normal. It's just you get kind of lesser turns to do things. It just turns into a 4-player game, which I think actually worked better too, because you got to play off of other people's cards more and didn't have to. I think in a 2-player it says you can play off your own or boost your own. So I liked that, kind of being able to manage or have people manage 4 hands versus just having 2. I think I'd like to try this one at 2 as well. I gave this one a 7. I did like how the card play worked, and because you kind of have your own hand of cards, you can kind of tell people oh, we're going to go for red or green or blue. There's kind of different types of cards that you can attack, and they have different colors, and then you can only boost with certain colors as well. So it's if we go for green, can people add to that one or not? So I like that one quite a bit, actually. I think it worked very well for what it was, and didn't necessarily have someone some cooperative games might have someone taking control and be we're going to do this and then this and then this. It's kind of just kind of what people have in their hand and how they want to play them. And because if you boost, they're usually, if it's a bigger boost, it usually is a card that does something really cool. So it's when do we take those risks of play that as a boost and make sure we finish this person off or whatever.
Right.
That was pretty fun.
Yeah, I agree. I'd give it a 7. I enjoyed it. It would be interesting to see it at 2 players, because even with 4 players, and we probably would go through the decks faster, but then you'd get more exhaustion cards. So I don't know how that would work, but I did think it was interesting, because it's we all had kind of a unique ability, and with that, it was really nice to have Carson's ability to move progress tokens, or Zach's to reroll, or yours to do whatever it was your guy did.
Well, some of my cards had shields, so it would block.
Right. That's true.
It could even block when it was boosting.
Right, that's right. So I feel like that would be really interesting to see how you would be able to do it with 2. We ended up losing anyway, even with 4 people. So I was oh boy, I don't know how we're gonna do it with 2. But I thought it was unique. It's different, kind of style of cooperative game, and you kind of, you're limited to what's in your hand, and you can throw out what you want to throw out and kind of go from there. But
I think what helped it was it kind of felt a little bit like Unmatched. It wasn't quite like Unmatched, but
sure,
a little similar
I can
in
see
ways.
That. Yeah, your cards do kind of cool things, and you only get so many cards to choose from. So yeah, that's good. That's a good way to put it.
What did you give it?
A 7.
Okay. And then kind of our last new to us game that we played was it Seers
Yeah.
It wasn't just called Seers. It was
No.
Seers Catalog.
That's one.
A Seers Catalog, and this was a card shedding game that had, I don't know, instead of it being actual Seers Catalog, S-E-A-R-S, it was S-E-E-R-S, and you, were trying to shed cards from your hand and kind of go out. If you ever played card shedding / trick taking style games, that's what this one was, and had some, I don't know, elements of having these kind of artifact cards, which could kind of do some special things as well. And yeah, this was unfortunately my least favorite game of the weekend. I'd give this one probably a 4. I think I determined I did not love card shedding games necessarily, or at least not that style. I think there were just some things about the game that were just, the rulebook wasn't the best, and the artifacts were a little like wonky. Like some of them made sense, and then other ones it's like, well, how do I use this? When do I use this?
What does that even mean?
What does it mean? And it didn't do the best at explaining it. It had a booklet for the artifacts, and it was still confusing. So I don't know, maybe without the artifacts, or if the artifacts had all been like clean, clear ones, like some of them were like add a half to it or whatever to the card that was just played or whatever, so then you're higher than the previous one laid. Like, okay, that makes sense, or this is the highest card, or +1, -1. Like, if they had all been kind of those simpler things, maybe it would have been a little bit better, but, there's just not much mitigation in this one. You kind of just get what you get. And then there's kind of a weird element of, you might not necessarily want to go out. You want to get down to, like, 1 or 2 cards with both of them being high, or one of them being high, and have someone else go out.
True.
Is what you'd really want, because you get positive points at the end of each round, assuming you got down to less than 6 cards, you get positive points for the lowest card in your hand. So if you had 2 big cards, that could be good, because you'll get positive in that amount, and then you'll get minus points for every card remaining in your hand. So if you had 8, 6, and you had those 2 cards left, it'd be -6, -2 for 4 points, whereas the person that went out would only get 0 points, so they would actually be worse off than you. So, I don't know, there's just something a little strange about it that didn't really work for me.
Yeah, I agree. I probably give it a 4 or 5, somewhere in there. It's so hard because it just took a while to reverse your brain into, like, the card shedding aspect, and then the idea of, like, well, you want to shed cards, but not all of them. And then throw in that, like, whole artifact thing. It was, like, just a little bit much for how it was. I could see how something like this, if done right, would be enjoyable, because I like those kinds of card games in general. Like, 5 crowns, phase 10, those types of items. And so it was kind of like broaching on that, but it kind of
did sets and runs. Yeah,
it kind of did, like, a backwards version of it that just didn't really hit for our group, and maybe, but also maybe not, and we didn't end up with it, and I doubt we're gonna go out and buy it. So
right, yeah, and it is kind of unfortunate, because I do tend to like unique, fun card games, and this one was unique, but not in the way that I really liked personally.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is what it is. It wasn't the worst. It wasn't the worst game ever, but it wasn't one that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it's too bad, because it was kind of fun themed. It was like werewolf, buying stuff for, like, werewolf season. Yeah,
because I think it's from Bezier Games, who does werewolf games and stuff. So I think they were sticking with that kind of theme, but kind of in that weird Seers Catalog, which the box looks like kind of a cover to a catalog, but then you got a werewolf in the door.
Right, you start looking
disrupting
at it. At first glance, you're like, okay, and then you start looking at it more, and you're like,
what's going on here? And then we played Reavers of Midgard card game and Anno 1800 and end our convention. So overall, I think most of them were probably average to above average. So some solid ones. Maybe nothing on here that was like, wow, I've got to buy this game right away, but there's many of them that I would want to get back to the table and play again. So hopefully at some point have a chance to play these again, and there'll be 4 of them that we can play for sure, because
that's true.
Between the 2 of us, or 4 of us, we got 4 of them, so we got some of these to play.
Well, out of 10 new games, we won 4 or 8. Yeah, 4 of them.
Yeah, so
Not
pretty
too
good
bad.
odds. Pretty good odds.
Not too
I guess.
shabby.
Not too shabby for a weekend's work.
What a haul.
But yeah, like I said, we did a video. If you're looking for kind of a small Midwestern convention that you can maybe go to or whatever, yeah, check out our video on Austicon and see what we thought about it. But yeah, otherwise, we hope to see you on that video. And as always, don't forget to keep on nibbling on our content.